Welcome back to Before the Bell here on MMA Odds Breaker. I'm Frank Trigg, of course. That is Nick Kalikas, the odds maker. Big fight night coming up here Sunday, January 14th. It's going to be a huge night. Obviously, we have a return of a legend in Vitor Belfort versus Uriah Hall. Main event is Jeremy Stephens versus Choi. Did I say his first name right? Duho? Is that right? I mean, it's these names now are getting harder because we're getting so many more international athletes that are stepping up to the game. First, we got to talk about Hall and Belfort. I mean, Vitor's been around forever, but he also is like 150 years old in fight years. He's had a lot of hard fights. He fought very, very young. Obviously, he was on a bunch of steroids when he fought at heavyweight, and I remember that epic match he had with Couture back in UFC Japan, back in Tokyo, the first time that Randy fought, and he's now since slimmed down. Obviously, he's a lot smaller, but on paper, these two guys are very evenly matched. Uriah Hall's ranked number 11, Vitor's ranked number 12. But like I said, Vitor's got a lot of mileage now. It's not experienced anymore. It's now becoming a situation of mileage. How do we see Vitor coming out in this fight?
It's stylistically, it's really not a good matchup for him. Again, and most of it is because of what you just said, because of the mileage that he has. The fight years, he's obviously hitting, to that spot where he's over 40. So all that stuff's adding up a little bit. And if he was in his prime, I would like his chances against Uriah Hall. But he's really obviously past his prime. He's not competing at the highest level. With USADA, everybody can, speculate what they want. I know he's been, in trouble before in the past for, those things. So, yeah, it's a different Vitor Belfort. It's not he's not the same guy that we're used to just dominating fighters out there. And we've seen this coming for a little while now. So, I mean, he did pick up a win over Marquardt last time out. So he can still, win some fights, and for as long as he's been around, that's amazing to say. In 2018, that Vitor Belfort can possibly still win some fights. And he does have a puncher's chance here. I mean, that's the thing. Hall's been knocked out a couple times recently as well. Vitor still has a little bit of power. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he caught him clean. He's going to knock Hall out. But there's a better chance that Hall actually knocks Vitor out. Or if it hits the scorecards, I think Hall's going to be able to outpoint him, and beat him up along the way, maybe get some takedowns. That's one thing people probably won't consider too much is Hall's wrestling. I mean, that usually is a downfall for him. But in this matchup, I think actually he'll have the wrestling advantage, and he might be able to steal a takedown or two if he wants to along the way. But I think he'll do enough damage that there's a possible finish coming, midway through the fight or earlier.
I don't see this fight going to the ground at all with these two guys. Even though Vitor is good on the ground and has that ability, but he just will not use it. He prefers to stay on his feet. We all know Uriah Hall is looking for the knockout. He's not going to take it down to the ground. I think it's going to be on the feet. If this fight goes to the cards, it's going to be 3 rounds of them on the feet. Am I seeing that right?
I think so, but I think, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Hall does sneak a takedown or two if it's playing out that long. Like if they don't knock each other out in the first round, I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to mix things up and maybe, steal a decision. I would think so, because if these guys are in a firefight for 3 rounds, I still expect Hall to actually come out on top and outpoint him. I mean, right now, I think he's just a better overall striker. But, like I said, we got to give Vitor some respect and some credit because he's been around for so long, and you can never count the guy out. But stylistically, that's why we're seeing right now. I mean, Hall's a huge favorite. He's minus 325, and the comeback on Vitor is plus 265. So The writing's on the wall. Most people are betting Hall as well, like he already won the fight. I mean, I opened it lower. I opened it around minus 245. So it went from like 245 to where it's at now, minus 325. So, yeah, the public likes Hall here. And it's hard to argue with him. I think, like I said, I'd be a little bit surprised if Vitor Belfort comes away with a win here. And it's an important fight for Hall, obviously. He wants to keep his momentum going and, get back on track. Because for a while there, he was a legit threat, to possibly, get a potential title matchup, and he was a threat for a lot of people. I mean, he's got that kind of knockout power on the feet and that crazy striking style that's effective, unorthodox but effective. So he's fun to watch, especially when he's putting his foot on the gas. He's really fun to watch.
Yeah, the only thing I question is his cardio, which he has been working on as of late. So that, if it does go to the distance, we've all seen Vitor fall apart. If it goes towards the end, he always starts to fade and fades a lot. I mean, obviously 2 warriors are going to get tired. It's just how it works. But Vitor definitely steps off the gas a lot sooner because he does tend to fall apart a lot earlier. I think with Uriah's new dedication to his cardio is going to make him a lot more formidable. Actually, I think he's going to step on the gas really early and be able to maintain it for a lot longer than we have seen him in the past.
Yeah, that's a good factor to bring up right there. I mean, gas tank wise, Hall does have an advantage over Belfort. Belfort does slow down quite a bit in round 2 and round 3 if it gets that far. So, yeah, that's another edge and another check you could mark off for Hall. So, yeah, I'd be surprised. I mean, if Vitor steps in there and beats Hall, what a win that would be, and he's going to keep on sticking around. They'll keep him around a little while longer, and who knows where he goes from there. But I think it's Hall going to be the winner here. So, but it's hard to bet. Would you take it at that price?
I wouldn't. I'd leave it alone. Yeah, I wouldn't leave it. I wouldn't touch it at all. I'd leave it alone.
I think the best way to go, maybe if you want to bet this fight, is probably a prop. But the prop is not going to be cheap either on obviously Hall inside the distance or Hall by knockout, because you're going to have to lay a little bit of chalk there, I'm sure, as well. But compared to 3-1, if you're going to lay chalk, rather lay less chalk. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's a way to go. Probably look at props for this fight.
All right, moving on to Stevens and Choi. This one is a very interesting matchup. Where does Jeremy survive in this weight class? He's been very close a couple times. He's been in the hunt. Is Little Heathen still have what it takes to be in the game? And Duo Choi is trying to prove that he belongs to be in the middle of the group. Now Jeremy's only ranked 9th right now, and Duho is ranked 13th. I think Jeremy should be ranked higher, but that's just my personal opinion, and I'm not on the voting committee. I don't rank these guys, so I'm just giving a personal, unsolicited opinion on it. I think Jeremy's a lot better than 9th at the weight class, but we have to find out. Let's see. This fight is still evenly matched, even though it's 9 versus 13. It's a big spread as far as the rankings go, but still in MMA, it's the matchups that actually make the fights. This matchup is very, very interesting. How do you see it?
Actually, right now, Choi's coming in as a favorite, slight favorite. He's minus 160, and Jeremy's coming in at plus 140. So a little bit of a lean towards Choi here in this fight. I mean, you basically have two strikers going at it here, and it should be a fun fight. It's going to be a firefight. I mean, we all know what kind of power Stevens has. I mean, he's the guy that goes out there and usually knocks people out, and not only with his hands. I mean, he's obviously capable of knocking you out with his kicks as well, head kicks. And I mean, the guy is just a threat on the feet, and he's always been. I mean, every fight you got to watch out for that power, and Choi has to as well. I mean, we've seen what he's capable of in that Cub Swanson fight, but he got tagged in that fight against Cub as well. So he's got to be careful. He's got to make sure his defense is a little bit better, because Stevens hits like a truck. But overall, you're seeing Choi as a favorite here because, I mean, Jeremy Stevens is another one of these guys that I think his best days might be a little bit behind him. I mean, I think we're seeing a little bit of a decline. It's not a huge decline, but it's a little bit. I mean, he's getting tagged. He's getting lit up on the feet a lot more than he has in the past and in fights recently as well. I think people are getting through to him a little bit more in that regard. And I think if Choi can do the same thing, obviously he's going to come out on top here. And I think he might. He's going to have the speed advantage. Choi also has a ton of power. I mean, he's got a good deal of knockout power. Now, Jeremy Stevens has a pretty solid chin, so I don't think it's going to be easy for him to go out. But I do think that Choi's, with his speed, with his power, with his accuracy, he's going to be a threat at any moment as well. So you can see either one of these guys knocking each other out. Or I think if it hits the scorecards, you're probably going to see Choi coming away with a win. I mean, if it goes deep, this is a headliner. So 5 rounds is a long time to go for both of these guys, striking it out like they will be doing. So I doubt it goes full 5. But if it does, I mean, we'll see whose gas tank is better. I think a little bit, battle tested is Stevens, right? Yeah. I would favor Stevens in that regard because he's been, through these wars a little bit more. But both these guys are going to be exhausted as it goes. So we'll see how it plays out.
Looking at UFC.com, you get on here and they do a really good breakdown. The biggest thing that stands out, of course, is significant strikes. 2.99 landed per minute for Stevens. Choi has 5.58 landed per minute. But defensively, you're looking at a 60% defense rate for Stevens and only a 49% or 50% defense rate for Choi. So it's very interesting to see that if you look at those two numbers, what's going to happen during this fight. I'll see Choi's going to be the busier with his hands, but only 4 out of 10 is going to get through. On the other hand, Jeremy's not as active, but he's going to get 50% of his punches are going to get through. And we all know that Stevens, if he gets one punch through, is enough to put him down. With Choi against Stevens, I don't think he has that power for the knockout. I really don't. So in my case, and looking at, just from my opinion, looking at it, I would say put a little bit of money on the dog. How do you see it?
Well, those stats, I think, are a little bit misleading at times. I think they're very accurate for Stevens because he's had so many fights in the UFC that, they can average all that stuff out and they can really get, an accurate number. That's what Stevens is about. Those stats that you read is very accurate. For Choi, he's had less fights in the UFC. So I don't think it's kind of as accurate. You know what I mean? If he had the same amount of fights as Stevens, you could kind of really compare the two and say, okay, look. Or if he's had a little bit more, than he has currently right now. So I think the data is good to look at, especially for Stevens' side, but Choi's might be a little bit off. But that being said, I do think Choi has enough power. I mean, the kid has lightning in his fist as well. So I think that there is a possibility of a finish coming either way. Like I said, I think Stevens, obviously, he's known for that knockout power. He gets the job done. But I'm favoring Choi a little bit here. I think it's almost like the new regime coming in here. And, I mean, he had a war. He had one of the best fights ever. In the history of the UFC, really one of those. I mean, arguably, obviously, with Cub Swanson, that was just an absolute war. So the fans loved it. But at the same time, that fight kind of dropped Choi's stock a little bit because I think people were surprised that he was, getting beat up as well. And Cub Swanson won that fight a little bit. The hype at that time was also on Choi. People thought, okay, Cub Swanson's coming in. Obviously, we all respect and love Cub. We know what he's capable of. I mean, we know what kind of quality fighter he is. But they were almost feeding him to the new young blood in that matchup. And they're doing the same thing for Jeremy Stephens here. They're putting him in there. I mean, Jeremy Stephens has been around for a while. So it's kind of Choi, the guy that's coming in, and the UFC wants to get a solid win, I think. I mean, at times I'm not saying the UFC wants to push Choi exactly, but I would think that that's the way to go. If you're going to market fighters, I mean, Stephens been around for so long. Is it better for you to push him towards a title shot or a guy like Choi, which is a little bit younger, fresher, I mean, hasn't been through the UFC run like Stephens has. And that's important. So I think Choi has a better shot at becoming a star than Stephens at this point. And I think the UFC's matching him up accordingly. So he gets a big win under his resume, and then they can keep on moving him up the ladder.
That makes complete sense. Yeah, that makes complete sense. I like it. There's another really good fight coming up here. Don't forget to watch earlier Usman and Meek, and of course Van Zandt and Clark are fighting also on the main card for Fox Sports 1. Once again, it's a great card they're doing in St. Louis. Keep checking back here at MMA Oddsbreaker. There's a bunch of interviews coming in from UFC fighters that have been done. Once again, I want to thank you for tuning in to Before the Bell here with Nick Kalikas and Frank Trigg. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you next time.